We just heard from Congresswoman Nancy Mace and Representative Joe Jefferson Jr. on their efforts to pass legislation in support of organ donors. Joining us is the inspiration behind the Living Donor Protection Act, Kenneth Sorensen, a kidney recipient, and so much more. And I want to thank you so much for joining us today to tell your story and how you were persistent enough to inspire our elected officials to take notice and to take action. So thank you for joining us today.
Well, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So let's just talk about your journey as an organ recipient. So what led you to needing a kidney?
Well, I was diagnosed with diabetes when I was 18. And, part of it is you feel invincible when you're 18. The other part is I was in an industry that didn't have particularly good health care, and things like insulin are expensive. And so the two major causes for kidney disease is hypertension and diabetes. And so mine came from diabetes, and I thought I was fine. And then around the age of 30, I did routine lab work, and they sent me to a nephrologist or a kidney doctor. And that's when kind of my path started towards, me knowing about my kidneys deteriorating.
Was this type 1 or type 2 diabetes?
It's interesting because it's kind of a hybrid, which a lot of people don't know about. But I would say at this point in my life, I'm pretty sure I can handle it with diet and exercise for the most part. So I think it's type 2, but I was originally diagnosed with type 1.
Oh, interesting. And if you can maybe just edify our audience as to the difference between the two.
Well, type 1 diabetes is an issue with your pancreas. You cannot produce the insulin you need to process carbohydrates, sugars, those kind of thing. Type 2 is where mostly because of diet and exercise, your pancreas, the insulin it produces becomes kind of ineffective. And so, a lot of people that are type 2 are not insulin dependent. I happen to be. And so what happens is as your diet and exercise improves, a lot of times type 2 diabetes can be overcome.
Okay. And so typically someone with a type 1 diagnosis, they're born with it, they develop it early.
Yeah.
Type 2 is something that
and the only thing that could possibly correct it is a pancreas transplant.
A pancreas transplant.
Yes.
But you needed a kidney transplant.
I did.
Between getting the diagnosis and then addressing it finally, what were some of the health struggles that you experienced in that process before you then needed to have a kidney transplant?
It was the toughest years of my life. I was on dialysis for about 4 years, and those people that don't know, dialysis is basically where a machine cleans your blood because your kidney can't do that effectively anymore. And you're sitting on this machine with big needles in your arm for about 4 hours, 3 days a week. So I went through that, and when your kidneys are failing, you just feel awful. Very lethargic. I basically didn't do anything. And it wasn't like I was 80 going through this. I was in my 30s going through this. And so I did that. There's two main types of dialysis. There's also a home dialysis that they call peritoneal dialysis, that they do it through your stomach, oddly enough. And I did that, and it just didn't seem effective. So that's why I switched to the in-center hemodialysis.
It sounds excruciating, but you also suffered some eye damage. So you lost your vision in your right eye?
Yeah, I did. It was probably about 10 years ago. I also have a disease called gastroparesis that's from diabetes, that basically made it so in 2017, about half the year I was in MUSC because I was so sick from that. So, the time leading up to the transplant was, it was awful. I was lucky that about 6 months before the transplant, like everything seemed to calm down, and I wasn't living, a horror story life. It had gotten a little bit better.
But you did suffer the vision loss, and that was because you say that you did not have very good health care. You couldn't afford to have a surgery that would have possibly mitigated the result of the diabetes. But then fast forward, and we'll get into healthcare because this is what this bill is all about, HR 1255. And you eventually needed to have that kidney transplant. So you got on the list, you got a transplant. So congratulations, because it takes forever for some people to get a match.
Yep. Oh yeah. I was lucky in a lot of ways. I was on the transplant list for about a year when I got the call for my donor. But what happened, I was able to I was on the list, and I was actually a backup for a kidney 8 times, which is pretty incredible. And in January of 2019, I got the call from actually my cardiologist first, and they said, "Hey, the medical university wants you to come down for a heart scan." And I was like, "But I'm not due for one." And they said, "Usually this means, that you have a transplant coming." And I was kind of confused by that. And then later in the day, I got the call from MUSC that a stranger wanted to donate. And the stranger happened to be, her name's Tiffany, and she wanted to donate to someone else. It was like a friend of the friend. She saw a Facebook post. And then what happened is she ended up, the person she was going to donate to ended up just not being able to, get the transplant at the time. And MUSC waited about a year and called my donor and said, "Hey, we just don't think it's going to happen." And my donor said, "Well,"
and then your time finally came, Kenneth.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Well, this is a good place to take a break. So when we come back, I want to hear about how HR 1255 came about, how you got the attention of our elected politicians, and where we are today with this. So we're going to do that in 2 minutes. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, Kenneth Sorensen. You are a kidney recipient after a battle with diabetes. You found your match. Congratulations on that. From what you tell me, you feel better than ever. There's the next struggle, though, and that's where HR 1255 comes into play, because what we just discussed with Congresswoman Nancy Mace and Representative Joe Jefferson Jr. is that you now need the protection of a law in order to obtain life insurance, in order to hold on to health insurance, in order to hold on to a job in the process. So did you have personal struggles when it came to this, or was this something that you saw in other people's experiences that you wanted to make sure changed here in South Carolina?
Well, this particular bill is trying to protect people like my donor, because what happens is once you donate a kidney, there are some, not a lot, but there are some insurance companies that kind of penalize you for it. And my thing was, she was a hero. She saved my life. The least we could do is protect her from those kind of things. A lot of people don't know that to donate a kidney, you have to be in incredible health, because they don't want to take a chance on something happening to you. So in the end, she's still healthier than most people. And so this bill, the state version, focuses completely on, basically non-discrimination when it comes to health insurance, disability insurance, and life insurance. Where the national bill kind of deviates from that is it also makes them a part of the Family Medical Leave Act. My donor had trouble because when she got the transplant, she had to be out for a while, and she ended up losing her job. Luckily, as soon as she was ready, she was able to, find one very quickly. And so this bill nationally adds that in order to protect them in that extra layer.
So Kenneth, you are not a take your kidney and run kind of guy. You are still there in the trenches, helping others who did give just one of the most selfless gifts one could give. And here you both are living a healthy life, a happy life, and you're doing whatever you can to protect them. I want to thank you so much for sharing your story, your journey with us. And for people who want any more information, you're an advocate with Sharing Hope SC. We've had them on the show so many times. They're a wonderful organization. We would just encourage people to become donors. And Kenneth, we're so happy to talk to you here today.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
After this.